seat. Kids, you can head back to the kid zone. Welcome everybody. We have this connection card that you should have gotten when you came in. If you don't have one, raise your hand really quick. Ben will grab you one. Does anyone need one? Ben has a bunch, so just keep your hand up. He'll grab them. So we are going through this series right now called the Gospel Highlighter. You can fold and tear off the bottom, put your info on there and all that, and see what we're trying to land on here at the end. We also have an app that you can scan the little thing in front of you, tap your phone on it, and download that, follow along. But we're going through the Gospels, and we're looking at the different stories in the Gospels that have the stories that take place in all four Gospels. So essentially what we have in the Bible is a big collection of writings that different people wrote, but really God wrote through those people. And the beginning of the New Testament is these four books, the Gospel according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And essentially we're hearing about the good news story of Jesus from these four different accounts, two of them being firsthand and two secondhand, kind of collecting information from people that were there. And there's something really cool about getting to look at the different perspectives of the same story. You find out way more about the scene of something that happens when you've got people standing on different sides of it. And that's essentially what we're getting here with this. And we've kind of, in looking through this in this series, we can kind of see different aspects of who Jesus is when we look at it from those different perspectives. And when something shows up in all four of those, first off, that kind of gives us a moment to pause and be like, oh, all four of them thought this thing was so important that it had to be in here. And God spoke into those writings, make sure this is there. And beyond that also, we just get to see those stories from so many different aspects. So today, we're looking at a story that you might have heard of before. If you've been in church for long, you've definitely heard it. Even if you have not been in church, this might be the one that you're like, yeah, I know that one. It's called the feeding of the 5,000. So this miracle that happens in Scripture is really, really cool. Basically, I'm going to spoil the end of the story here for you. There's 5,000 people, and they all get fed. I know. That's why it's called that. Shocking. Essentially, Jesus takes these two small fish and these 5 small loaves of barley bread and feeds 5,000 people with that. It's this incredible miracle. Now, something you might not know, and I genuinely did not know this until I started studying for this sermon, is that this is only one of 2 miracles that are in all 4 Gospels. The other one being the resurrection, which is crazy. A lot of the other stories here are great stories, but they're not miracles. And there's a lot of miracles that are in 3 of the Gospels or 2 of the Gospels, or Jesus did different miracles similar ways, and we see him in all the Gospels. But of the actual miracles that Jesus performs, this is the one outside of the resurrection we see in all 4 Gospels, which is kind of crazy. Another thing you might not know is Matthew 15 and Mark 8 tell us that Jesus did this again later, and he fed 4,000. So apparently Jesus is just like a miraculous caterer that just keeps doing this thing, you know? I had in my notes, I'm going to say this joke, and it's not even good because I'm literally setting it up as a bad joke. But I wrote that he was a cereal miraculous caterer, and that doesn't mean he serves cereal, although most cereal is made with barley. And I was like, that's so bad, but I love it, and I'm saying it anyway. So there you go. I got to read it to you. Oh, man. Jesus help us. Jumping into this, let's start with this. As we get into the story, one of the most important things about reading Scripture is knowing the backstory, knowing what got you there, what's the context. So the backstory to the feeding of the 5,000 is this. Jesus is going around this area doing incredible things, casting out demons, healing people, praying for the sick, and just praying over people and connecting with people. He's doing this incredible ministry in his hometown. And he's basically fully rejected. People are like, I knew you. You used to play on this swing over here. No, I don't believe in you. I don't know if he had a swing. But he's going through all this stuff, and he's just basically being straight out rejected. And we also have the Jewish leaders who are coming against him and being like, no, this is not okay. We don't want you to be doing this. So instead of backing down to everyone pushing back on him, he actually multiplies himself, and he's like, okay, you 12 of my closest disciples, I'm going to send you out to do the same ministry I'm doing. And he sends them 2 by 2 into the whole area. So now we've got 6 teams of disciples and Jesus all doing this ministry in this whole area. And God is just moving like crazy in that. But then it kind of comes to a screeching halt, and we find out that John the Baptist, who is Jesus' cousin, is murdered. And Jesus finds out about this, but there's a whole story in that too. Apparently, what happened was King Herod stole his brother's wife and married her, and John the Baptist is like, that's bad. So new wife is not happy about that, and she talks her daughter into asking her new husband to kill John the Baptist. And there's a whole thing with a dance, and he's like, I'll give you anything, and she's like, John the Baptist. So that's what happens, and John the Baptist ends up getting beheaded. So Jesus finds out about that right before the feeding of the 5,000. Right before. Matthew 14:12 said, John's disciples came and took his body and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus. So these people that followed John the Baptist, just like Jesus' disciples were to him, these guys were to John. They followed him and tried to be closer to God. And they come to Jesus and say, hey, this is not a rumor. We buried his body. Your cousin is dead. This guy that you love, this guy who is one of the godliest men to ever walk the earth, probably Jesus' best friend, from the beginning, from before the beginning, in utero, they have a connection. And he finds out that he's dead. So, gosh, I think for any of us to go through something like that would be gut-wrenching, right? Just the emotion of that would be overwhelming. And I think we have this just totally unfounded idea sometimes where it's well, God doesn't feel pain for these things that happen because he's God and he's separate. And there's actually kind of a thing in our culture that now that's well, God causes all those things or doesn't stop them, so he's immoral and he's wrong. And what we actually see in God, what we see in Jesus, is that he feels those things in a way that is so much deeper than the way that we feel them. Imagine being perfect and not dealing with all the sin and all the junk that we do, and not we just have a baseline of anguish, just like when we wake up in the morning, we just are broken. Imagine being perfect and then feeling that same thing that we feel. I think Jesus felt this in a much deeper way than all the other people that felt this. So Jesus is going through all this. Matthew 14:13 says, when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Jesus was like, I need to get away. I just need to process this. So that is Matthew's perspective of this whole story. Then we shift to Mark's perspective. We get a little bit more. So after Jesus sends out the 12, Mark 6:30 says this. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So, in the middle of Jesus, getting away to grieve the loss of his family member, all of these people follow all the disciples back to Jesus. So just hordes of people follow them back to Jesus, which, why wouldn't you, These guys are all going out and sharing, this is who Jesus is, and you're like, I need to meet that guy. I'm going to follow you for the half day's walk or whatever and go meet him. So now, Jesus, trying to be alone, gets completely overwhelmed by all these people. So then Luke's perspective gives us even more. Luke tells us that after killing John the Baptist, King Herod finds out about all this stuff that Jesus is doing. And he hears, okay, Jesus is reaching these people. He's healing people. All this stuff is going on. And he's like, okay, is this John the Baptist who came back to life? Is this Elijah? Is this some other prophet? Who is this person doing this stuff? And Luke 9:9 says, but Herod said, I beheaded John. Who then is this I hear such things about? and he tried to see him. So now Herod, the guy that just killed Jesus, his cousin, is trying to find Jesus for who knows what. And Jesus finds out, okay, Herod's coming after me. So then, John's perspective, and Luke mentions this too, John 6:1 says, sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. So he gets away on this, across this lake. And the lake, by the way, is about 6 miles across. So practically that would be from here to our Irvington location plus another quarter mile. So think about that much water, and crowds followed him across or around the water. So again, the gospel highlighter thing is all about trying to see the whole picture. So the whole picture, when we put all of these perspectives together, is Jesus is being rejected for the ministry that he's doing. He sends people out, they do more incredible stuff, but when they come back, hordes of people come with them. His cousin died. He finds out about it firsthand from somebody who was there firsthand. And he gets away, all these crowds are coming, and then he gets across a lake and they just follow him. I'm an extrovert, and that sounds horrible, right? Like, how many of you are introverts? Yeah, the fact that I asked you to raise your hand is horrible. Can you imagine that? Like, all of these people coming, like, just put yourself in his shoes for a minute. That's a lot. And that is the place that he is in when he serves all these people. When he preaches to them, when he gives them the keys to life, when he sees people saved and set free and healed, and he's doing all this work, and then he feeds 5,000 people, that is the place that he's in. So how much more does he take care of us in the midst of our stuff? You know? Mark 6:34 says this, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. Luke 9:11, he welcomed them and he spoke to them about the kingdom of God and healed those who needed healing. Matthew 14:14, he had compassion on them and he healed their sick. He did the work in the midst of his own, I don't even know if need is the right word with Jesus, but in his own chaos that he was living, he served these people. And how much more today in heaven is God taking care of our stuff? Is he serving us in the midst of our stuff? That's such a humbling thing to think through. But it doesn't stop there. He doesn't just heal them. He doesn't just pray for them. Mark 6:35 says, by this time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. This is a remote place, they said, and it is already very late. Send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. And John tells us in John 6:5, when Jesus looked up, he saw a great crowd coming towards him. And he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. And Philip answered him, it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for everyone to have just a bite. So, again, picture this. I don't know how many of you guys have been watching the Winter Olympics, but every time the Olympics goes into a place, they have to build all new stuff because it's so many people coming to a place that is not usually able to handle that many people, right? So when we have the Indy 500 here, the whole city is different, right? When we have an extra 500,000 people, and we're a city of 2 million people. So imagine Danville getting 500,000 people, that's the kind of chaos we're looking at here. It's not like, oh, everyone go to a restaurant, come back in an hour. There are no restaurants. There's little old ladies who might feed you if you ask nice. That's pretty much what we're looking at. So he says, it would take half a year's wages to give everyone just a bite, not to feed them, but to have them put something in their stomach, half a year's wages. So I did the math. The median income right now in Indianapolis is $56,550. So that's not the average. That's the most people land in the middle median. The average is actually a little higher. So it'd be safe to say that we're looking at about, contextually today, about $30,000 to feed these people. Okay. Now I also looked a little farther into it because it's me, and I looked up the cost of what it would cost to cater fish with a small side, the cheapest place in Indianapolis to cater for that many people. The absolute cheapest I could find was $7 a person, which is dirt cheap. So $7 a person, that many people, would be about $35,000. So not a great meal, not like a fully all-you-can-eat, just $35,000. But actually, we're not talking about 5,000 people. That's the crazy thing. Matthew 14:21 says the number of people who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Okay? So we're not looking at 5,000 people. The way they counted back then was counting family units. Okay? So this wasn't about men or women or anything like that. They're counting the family units and then averaging from there. So the actual estimates of theologians who have thought about this and done all the work or whatever, they say there's probably between about 15 and 20,000 people there. So they are in a remote place, 15, 20,000 people they have to feed. So even then, I don't think we're talking 30, 35,000. I think we're talking a lot more. If we take that $7 figure, we're talking between $105,000 and $140,000 to feed all these people one small meal. So when you put it in that perspective, it's a little crazy. I also want you to remember that the people that Jesus is talking to, his disciples, were teenagers. Okay? So college students, what if I looked at you and I was like, you guys are in charge of dinner tonight. It's going to be about $115,000. So figure it out, right? So the crazy thing about all this, I think, the miracle here is not that Jesus made $100,000 appear. It's not that he had brought in cooks from all over the countryside, and they're like, look, we have a feast here. We've already prepared it, and I paid for it, or Herod did, whatever. That's not the miracle. The miracle is that in the middle of Jesus just doing ministry, he takes care of a practical need like it's nothing. And I'll tell you, as somebody who has been following Jesus wholeheartedly for about 20 years, I have so many examples in my life of times where that exactly happened. Where I was just doing the thing God called me to with everything I could, and this massive practical need popped up, and he just took care of it. And I've told a lot of those stories before. I'm not going to bore you with another one. A lot of you guys have heard those things. I can tell you some fun ones over lunch if you want, whatever. But there are just so many times where God has shown up and given us the exact amount of money that we needed to the dollar. And we're like, that was God. There's no other way. Or given us the job that we needed for the season to pay for exactly what we needed, and then it was done after. Or there were times even that he took money away from us, and we were like, what the heck? And then that was exactly when that needed to happen to work out better in the long run. He has always taken care of those needs, and even given us some fun things that were beyond need that were still just God. And it was what the heck? He just keeps showing up. And that's not to say that for lost people or people that don't know Jesus, that God doesn't still take care of their needs, that he doesn't still use the church to take care of the needs of the people. That should be the case. That's why we do so much of what we do in the church. But I think there's also just something different about when we are fully and utterly giving our lives to Jesus, he takes care of our practicals. He just takes care of the needs. He does. So at the end of this, we've got the connection card, like I said. I'm just going to kind of jump to that for a second. The first one on here is I'll choose to trust God to be my provision. And I just want to tell you guys, that doesn't just happen because he's some kind of a godly lottery where you're just If I say the right words, money comes out. Like, it's not, he's not an ATM. But my experience is that when your whole life is about the gospel, when you are giving everything, when you are sitting at his feet and listening to everything he has to say, and you're doing the stuff with him, the things just align. Like, they just fall into place. Now, let your need be known. Tell people in the church, this is where I'm at. I need help, and we can come around you. But man, like, God is just so good in that. So I'm just reminded, like, even just reading through this, the people that he was taking care of, like, weren't even doing the work. It wasn't like he just fed the 12. He fed the people that were sitting and listening. And when we sit and listen, when we sit at his feet, and we don't just like get obsessed with our hunger for worldly things, and we just go after Jesus, like, he just takes care of us. And it's a really powerful thing. But then we see another part of this with the people that he's walking with the disciples. And they trust him for this crazy thing. The part of this story that I think we forget often, that I always forget until I like read deeply into it, is that when Jesus feeds all these people, he uses his disciples to do it. And that's kind of wild. Like, God, like Jesus has the audacity to look at a group of teenagers and say, feed 20,000 people. Like, that's what it is. Like, these are teenagers, and they're not rich teenagers. They're fishermen, right? And he looks at them and he says, hey, what if you fed all these people? Imagine being that person, right? like just close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're standing there looking at 20,000 people. I don't even know what that would look like. That is like New York on like Times Square during New Year's. Like, that's a massive, massive group of people in an entire stadium. And God just says, okay, feed them, make it happen. And you're 16. Imagine the feeling of that. And like, I have to think, like, my own life, I would probably be like trying to figure out, okay, like, do I sell everything? No, that would feed like 8 people. As a fisherman next to the water, they're probably like, is there a boat I can tell to fish on the other side? That worked before. I don't like do we do the same things? Like, I don't know why my brain always, when I hear something like a crazy number that I can't even comprehend, I just think like robbing a bank is the only option. I would never actually do it, but like your brain goes there. Like, I wonder if these guys were like, Matthew knows tax collectors and they just carry money. Like, I have to imagine these like broken, normal teenagers are like, what do we do? But Jesus looks at them in Matthew 14:16, Mark 6:37, and Luke 9:1. You give them something to eat. You figure this out. So they're going through all this stuff, and they start making excuses, as you would. Mark 6:37 says, that would take more than half a year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and bring it to them to eat? And then Andrew in John 6:9 essentially says, that kid has food, get him. And like, that's the extent of this. And I had not noticed this until preaching this sermon right now. No one asked the kid for the food. Have you ever noticed that? I did not notice that until reading all 4 Gospels in a row like this. That's Gospel highlighter thing. Andrew just goes, here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many? Like, there's no conversation that we see. There's just, that kid has food, and now that's an obvious, we're going to take the food from the kid. We could feed all of them. Like 4 of them, And I'm sure they had a conversation. I'm sure they didn't steal food from a child. At least Jesus didn't. But the crazy thing here is all of those disciples heard this call to feed the people. And I have to imagine that their thought was, what a burden that he's put on me. I have to do this thing. It's my job now, apparently. What? And what was really happening was not a burden. What was really happening was that Jesus was about to feed 5,000 people, and he let these dumb teenagers be a part of it. He invited them into this incredible move of God, this incredible miracle, one of two miracles in all four Gospels. The other one was the resurrection. And this one, he looks at these teenagers and says, I want you to have your hands on this. I want you to be a part of this amazing thing I'm going to do. And he invites them into it, which is just such a cool thing. It's not a burden, it's an invitation. Matthew 14:17, he says, we have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. He said, bring them here to me. A reminder again, they're not doing it. They're literally just picking it up. They're probably having the conversation of, hey, can we have this? We'll feed you, I promise. And then they walk to Jesus. Give it to him. He does the thing. Mark 6:39, then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. So Jesus invites these teenagers into this thing. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know the end of the story. We know the end of the story. They had no clue. All they knew is they handed food to Jesus and then got people in a group of like this room. And 20,000, 15,000, whatever people, they went around and spread the crazy. They're like, Jesus is about to do this thing, I guess. Let's do this together. And if you're in church leadership, you know what that feels like. And if you're in this church, then you probably have been on at least the other side of that, where I was like, sit in this circle, and you're like, okay, like, we'll see what happens. So then Luke 9:16, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and he broke them. And then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. At the beginning, they were like, maybe everyone could have a bite if we spent 30 grand. And Jesus is like, no, we got this. And they come back with so many leftovers that people ate what they needed, you know? And keep in mind, all these people have just traveled to the middle of nowhere. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. They probably did not stop and pack a bunch of food. If they would have started collecting food or something. Like, they're just there. And when you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you chow down, you know? So even after that, 12 basketfuls of food left over. Jesus does this amazing thing. And I just want to remind us here, okay? Like, we often look at the Bible like it is just this religious text. But this is a historical document, okay? That even people who don't believe Jesus is God, like most people, think that this is such a solid historical document that has been unchanged for so many years that they would say this is a historical account of what happened. And if they said this and it was a lie, 20,000 people would be able to say it was a lie. Yeah. The fact that you're reading it today means it happened, which is wild. That all of the people that would want this to stop were like, no, John was there, that happened. You know, Adam, he saw that whole thing, he was fed, it happened. Like, that's crazy. John 6:14, and after the people saw the sign that Jesus performed, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who has come into the world. Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. And you know what? After all that, people do the things that people always do, and they mess it up. And they're like, Jesus is going to be our king. We're going to make him do it, which that's never ended well. So Jesus then goes away, and there's so many like other things we could go into there. But just like the story of what Jesus did is so powerful. And not just because he fed all the people, it's because of what we take from the exact same thing. I think there's probably been times in your life where Jesus has fed you. He's like literally taking care of you. Things have just happened and you're like, wow, what a coincidence. And he's like, okay. I think there have been times that he's called you to crazy things and asked you to be a part of, stuff with him. And I don't know if you obeyed or not. But at the end of the day, like, this shows the character of God in such an amazing way. That in the midst of the whole, like, God's in heaven and the world's falling apart due to sin thing, he's still looking at you and being like, he's got a light bill. That's crazy, guys. Like, it's amazing that at the end of the day, God still desperately cares about you. Enough to get you in this room here today to hear the reminder that he's got you. And in the midst of all of the crazy that's happening, he doesn't just like do miracles. He doesn't just do the stuff. He looks at you in all of your brokenness, in all of your pain, in all of your sin that you're currently walking in, that you walked in last night, and all the stuff you came in with today, all of that. And he says, I want to use that person for amazing things. He doesn't just do it, he uses you. How incredible is that? That's the God that we serve. So in response to that, I wrote these not as like, here's what we should do to be better as a church. Yeah, worship team, you guys can come up. I wrote this as in like, how could we not? You know, I'll choose to trust God to be my provision. When you look at God providing miraculously in your life, I feel like hindsight is 20/20, you know? When you look back at a season and you're like, man, God did this amazing thing, you probably aren't like, I was faithful the whole time, but you're like, it worked out, you know? So why, when we're in the middle of it, are we like, this is the time he's going to let me drop? God, when you follow him completely, and I'll say again, there were probably people in this town who were not listening to his teaching, who did not get fed that night. But when you are sitting at his feet and you are listening to every word that comes out of his mouth, he takes care of you. The next thing here is, I'll listen when God tells me to do something that sounds crazy if I know it's him doing it. That last part's kind of important. Don't just do crazy things and be like, Jesus. No. How much, though, can we trust God when he calls us to do these things? And I'll tell you, like, again, like I said, if you guys have been a part of this church for a while, if you've known me for a while, I've probably asked you to do some crazy things. Like, how often does God show up? Like, how often does God do the thing that we're like, I don't know how he's going to do this one? I'm sure there's been leadership meetings where I'm like, do we rob a bank? Like, no, that's not it. And God has just taken care of it. Like, man, he's so good. If either of those things are things that you need to commit to, that you need to be like, I am going to change my perspective on this, mark them off, and we'll pray with you. There's also the digital one on your app. And the last one here is I'll commit to read through the 4 Gospels between now and the end of the Gospel Highlighter series. Just because, like, I've honestly been blown away by how reading it this way has shifted my perspective on things. I've read this story I don't know how many times, and I found like 5 or 6 things that I just did not know, that I had never noticed, and it's so good to read it that way. So if you want to join us in reading through that, we have a reading plan that you can get on the app. It's like 5 minutes a day. It's not a big deal. So even though you're like 2 or 3 weeks behind, that's not hard to catch up. You can do that. But read through it with us, because I really truly believe that when we get Scripture in us, it changes us for the better in such an incredible way. So let's stand up. Let's respond to God. Fill out that card. You can put it in the box at the back. You can come up and talk to Caleb or I if you need prayer for any of those things. If you're struggling and you're like, I just don't think God's going to provide, come get prayer. If you are like, man, God's telling me to do this crazy thing, I don't know how to respond to him, come talk to us. We'd love to pray for you. But Lord, that's our prayer for all of us today. That's my prayer for me today. That even after years of seeing you show up for just practical needs that I think you shouldn't even care about, I still question whether you're going to show up the next time. Lord, I just pray that I would be faithful to actually trust you. God, even in all the times that you've called us to things that feel crazy, you always show up and you always do the thing that you say you're going to do. Thank you for using broken people like me. Thank you for using us. God, you're so worthy of worship. You're so good to us where we don't deserve it. Lord, we love you. We thank you. I pray that we would show up the same way that you show up, Lord, or try. Amen.